Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room as we review another fantastic sporty weekend. And once again, the Springboks on top of the world. South Africa's final game in their back-to-back Castle Rugby Championship triumph was a microcosm of their campaign. The biggest opponent proved to be themselves, and it meant that their dominance was reflected in the scoreline. Yeah, a 2-point winning margin over Argentina at Twickenham will suggest to people who took a look back at the current events considering consigned to history, it was a narrow squeak for Siya Kolisi and his team. It wasn't, though. Once they got the bit between their teeth shortly before halftime, it was clear there was only going to be one winner, and Argentina did score their try. But oh my goodness, or at least after the siren, but oh my goodness, how it could have been different if Argentina hadn't hit the upright with about 3 minutes to go after South Africa conceded a penalty, basically in front of the posts about 40 meters out. And unfortunately, they struck the post, and then they did go on to score after the siren, which gave them just a 2-point deficit against South Africa. But it wasn't anything like the South African performance at Kings Park in Durban the previous week, but it was still good enough for South Africa to lift the trophy and, of course, defend that title with the Boks 26 unanswered points from their 37th minute to 58th minute. It was effectively a repeat of what happened to New Zealand in Wellington and Los Pumas in Durban in the second half. There was just one team on the field, and the game and the championship were basically wrapped up in those few minutes. A totally dominant South African scrum. Brilliant performance by the pack of forwards, all of them, including the guys that came up off the bench, and a great performance, albeit there was one or two mistakes that the South Africans made, but you can understand. They played in Durban the week before, as did Argentina, I might add, then a flight to London, and change of conditions, certainly a lot cooler and quite windy at Twickenham on Saturday afternoon. But the South Africans getting through with a magnificent performance from two of the most effective players on the field, the number 2 and the number 9. I think it was very difficult to choose which of those two players was going to be named as man of the match, but it was a fantastic performance by both of them. Malcolm Marx, well, there's no doubt he is the best hooker in the world, and he certainly showed it. South Africa's scrum dominance was clear throughout the game, and most probably you will see that in weeks and months still to come as far as the South Africans are concerned. So where is it from here for the South Africans? Well, we still haven't seen an 80-minute performance by the Boks, and whichever team happens to catch an 80-minute performance by the Springboks are going to be on a hiding to nothing. Remember, of course, we played brilliantly in the first half against Australia in the opening game in Cape Town, and then completely lost our way in the second half. We had a magnificent second half performance against the All Blacks a couple of weeks ago, a magnificent performance in one half against Argentina, and then, of course, the match against Australia as well. But it still means that South Africa have to put together 80 minutes. The old men in the team, Damian Allende, along with Peter Steph du Toit, will compete with each other for man of the championship. If there were to be one, Wilco Louw smashed the opposition at every scrum. Thomas du Toit also picked up his momentum. Eben Etzebeth remains Eben. Kolisi has shown good form once reunited with the number 6 jersey, and Handre Pollard was the match winner in Cape Town's game against the Wallabies. Well, France are probably the one nation that can challenge the depth of South Africa, so they'll be a big challenge, but the biggest obstacle to the Boks is themselves. In the past 2 games, they gifted 21 points to the opposition, and it's part of a growing process, but when they stop doing that, it is hard to see anybody beating the Springboks. So that is the Rugby Championship conceded. Another couple of trophies for South Africa in the bag. And as far as the Springboks are concerned, they are now back to South Africa. I'm not sure if they are already back. Next for them is Saturday, the 1st of November. They play against Japan. And then the toughest test of all, I guess, will be on the 8th of November, where they play France. That's a big game indeed, followed by Italy on the 15th of November. 22nd of November, they play Ireland, which is one of their nemesis, and then against Wales, who I guess by that stage South Africa might be a little tired, but I don't think even a third-string Springbok side should lose to a very poor Welsh team at the moment. So still to come, Japan, the French, Italy, Ireland, and Wales. South Africa will play Japan at Wembley Stadium. Yep, that's going to be an absolute beaut. The Springboks will start their Castle Lager outgoing tour. It's a historic test against Japan. The test will be the first rugby event to be held at the famous North London venue since 2016, when the Springboks and the Barbarians played a thrilling 31-all draw. Tickets are already on sale at Wembley Stadium. The Boks are no strangers to playing in London, having defeated Wales 41-13 in June 2024. Twickenham, they beat New Zealand at Twickenham a year earlier in the build-up to the Rugby World Cup. And, of course, this weekend they beat Argentina in the final round of the Castle Lager Rugby Championship. So that is all still to come. That wasn't all of the rugby at the weekend, I might add. Australia and New Zealand also battled it out. Once again, New Zealand coming from behind to beat Australia 28-14, retaining the Bledisloe Cup, which of course they did the week before anyway, gave themselves an absolute outside flicker of a hope in the Rugby Championship, but it was not to be for the All Blacks as the South Africans beat Argentina. Where to from there? Well, they also, of course, have a couple of tours to go to. Now, as far as other rugby is concerned, United Rugby Championship action. Well, on Sunday, that's yesterday, the Zebras and the Lions clashed. The Zebras scoring in the last minute of the game to level the matters at 20 points all, and then kicked the conversion to win 22-20. On Saturday, Munster and Cardiff played out an entertaining game, Munster winning 23-20. Benetton 16-14 over the Glasgow Warriors. The Bulls beat Leinster 39-31. And then on Friday evening, 17-all draw between the Dragons and the Sharks. And the Stormers had to come from behind as well, 26-10 at the Cape Town Stadium. They beat Ospreys. So I know it's still very early in the day, but it's been a good weekend, mostly for the South Africans, United Rugby Championship. And the tables look like this. The Bulls and the Stormers top at the moment. The Bulls with 10 points, 2 bonus point wins, 5-5. A magnificent performance so far by the Bulls under Johan Ackermann. The Stormers 9 points from their 2 matches, followed by Munster and Zebra, also 9 points. And then Cardiff in 5th place have 7, with the Glasgow Warriors on 6. And then Ulster and Connacht have 5 points apiece. And then trailing right at the bottom, the Llanelli Scarlets and Leinster with Ospreys and the Lions on a single point. Who would have thought, even though there's just 2 matches played, the powerhouse of Leinster have only picked up a single bonus points. So what are the fixtures to come? Now, of course, no international rugby this weekend, so full focus will fall on the United Rugby Championship, where Munster play Edinburgh and Llanelli Scarlets play the Stormers. Stormers go away from home for the first time Friday evening. That could be a bit of a tough challenge for them. They haven't played well away from home over the last few seasons. And then a full program on Saturday sees Benetton hosting the Lions, Ospreys hosting the Zebras, the Glasgow Warriors play the Dragons, Leinster play the Sharks, perhaps an opportunity for the Sharks to get a win against Leinster, Cardiff against Connacht, and Ulster will host the Bulls. So all the South African teams are away from home over the course of the weekend. And Friday sees the Dragons against Cardiff, Edinburgh against Benetton, and Connacht against the Bulls the following week. So a full program of rugby on the United Rugby Championship front that's coming up this weekend. Let's turn our attention now to cricket. And we start with the big clash yesterday between India and Pakistan. And India quite convincingly beat their rivals Pakistan by 88 runs in a clash that was marred by controversy as players refused to shake hands at the stadium. The 2 captains avoided the customary handshake at the toss, and there was hardly a glance exchanged during play. Once the formalities were done, both sides made a beeline to their dressing room, skipping the traditional post-match greetings, a frosty ending to a heated encounter. Now, the problem that we have here is the BCCI, which basically runs cricket, even though there is a controlling body called the ICC, the International Cricket Council. They should be taking action. But of course they won't, because the BCCI, as I say, which is the Board of Control for Cricket in India, basically runs cricket throughout the world, and it's their players who are involved both in the men's and women's game that are basically bringing the game into disrepute. The animosity brewed during the recent Men's Asia Cup in Dubai and seemed to spill over to the women's fixture in Colombo even before a ball was bowled Controversy struck when the toss went the wrong way. Pakistan skipper Fatima Sano's calls of tails was misheard by match referee Shande Fritz and announced Mel Jones as heads by the announcer. Mel Jones, when the coin landed heads up, the decision was incorrectly awarded to Fatima, who chose to field. The drama didn't stop there. Pakistan's Munib Ali was caught short in bizarre fashion after surviving a leg before appeal. She wandered out of her crease, and though she had grounded her bat when the throw came in, it was in the air when the bails were dislodged. The television umpire ruled her out amid heated protests from the Pakistani camp. India's innings was built on a series of useful starts. So lots of controversy going on in the Women's Cricket World Cup, and they need to do something about it. To the ICC, the tournament, of course, is under their auspices. So let's look at some of the other results from the tournament. Just to remind you that India were 247 in their 50 overs. Pakistan won 59 all out. On Saturday, the Australia-Sri Lanka game was abandoned without a ball being bowled because of inclement weather. And I'm sure the South Africans will want to forget terrible start to their Women's World Cup when they were comprehensively beaten by 10 wickets by England. South Africa bowled out for just 69 and England scoring 73 without losing a wicket in just 14 overs. So South Africa well and truly thumped in their opening game against England. Now have a chance to redeem. They are playing today, and we will update you with that result through the course of the week. Tomorrow sees England against Bangladesh. Now South Africa incidentally playing New Zealand. Wednesday sees Australia play Pakistan. Thursday sees India against South Africa. And then on Friday, it's New Zealand against the Bangladeshi. Saturday, it's England against Sri Lanka. And Sunday, the Indian women against the Australian women. So that is your cricket action as far as the Women's World Cup is concerned. As far as other cricket is concerned, it is action on the field in the South African competition, the Cricket South Africa 4-day series. Let's have a look at how things went over the course of the weekend. Well, a fighting century from Keegan Peterson wasn't enough to save the Titans from a heavy 196-run defeat against their opponents at the J.B. Marks Oval. That ended yesterday. The Titans were completely outplayed by the Dragons. 258, not good enough. In Paarl, half centuries from Bryce Parsons, Tsepang Titole and Jason Smith helped the Dolphins cruise to a comfortable 5-wicket win over Boerland just after lunch on the final day of that one. In Pietermaritzburg, the Tuskers and the Warriors saw their weather-disrupted match end in almost an inevitable draw on day 4 at the Pietermaritzburg Oval. And then the Lions in action, they thrashed Western Province. That was already over on Saturday. The DP World Lions produced a thoroughly clinical performance to claim a crushing innings and 134-run win over the Western Province with a day to spare at Newlands. A career-best batting performance by Connor Estes, who converted his first maiden first-class century on day 2 into a big 175, helped his team declare 552 for 9, giving them a massive 359-run lead. And that was it. Quinnan Mapaka was the pick of the bowlers, 3 for 26. Province crumbled to a low score, 225 all out to fall well short in the end. So what are the fixtures for this week? Well, the action is fast and furious as the 4-day competition continues. It continues on with lots of action in the South African Cricket South Africa 4-day series. The fixtures look like this as the weekend goes along. Starting on Wednesday, it's the Dolphins against the Lions. Then on Thursday, it's the Eastern Cape Liniatis against the Northern Cape Heat. And then the following week, it's the Dolphins against the Tuskers, the Warriors against Boerland, the Titans against the Lions, and Western Province play against the Dragons. So lots of action on the cricket fields. And then, of course, India absolutely thumping the West Indies in their test match innings defeat. All-rounder Ravindra Jadeja starred with both bat and ball as India hammered the West Indies by an innings and 140 runs inside 3 days over the weekend. Now, the other big action at the weekend was, of course, the Grand Prix. And what a drama-filled Grand Prix it was. The feisty relationship between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris came to a head at the Singapore Grand Prix, although I think the media are hyping it up a bit more than it actually really was. It overshadowed McLaren clinching their second consecutive Constructors' World Championship. That's in the media. I can tell you right now that the McLaren boys have had a massive celebration to successfully attain that title that they won last year. It's the 10th time in the history of Formula One that McLaren are Constructors' Championship. Piastri was left fuming after Norris made a superb start from 5th on the grid and forced his way past in the opening complex of bends. Sparks flew as the McLaren teammates collided wheel to wheel, with Norris going on to finish 3rd and Piastri 4th. George Russell won the race, and Max Verstappen came 2nd. Very, very few opportunities to overtake on this track in extremely, extremely hot conditions in the humidity of Singapore. What it does mean is that Lando Norris has cut the lead that Oscar Piastri has now down to 22 points. 336 to 314. Max Verstappen 273 and George Russell 237. Those top four with Charles Leclerc way back in 5th on 173. Now, if you look at what happened, Norris got a tap, or maybe he tapped Max Verstappen. That pushed him across his wheel, then touched on Oscar Piastri's wheel, and round they went. The stewards looked at it. They said there was no issue. It was a racing incident. The two team bosses, well, the boss and the racing director, Zach Brown, they decided everything was okay, and they let the two of them race. So I think the media are hyping this up more than it actually is. But I will say that Piastri is beginning to show cracks in what was before a almost steely-like demeanor. Now, he had a few words last race. He had a couple of interesting words this race. Pressure is beginning to tell on the Australian as Lando Norris keeps the pace and keeps pushing him as hard as he possibly can as they continue on. Piastri was unhappy with the call, but he did compile with the call, but complied, leading the boss, Adrian Seller, to say it showed the values and principles they have at McLaren. There was a bit of racing going on. They're going to let them race. Zach Brown said the first lap incident was part of hard racing, and it had been clean. So, what's going to happen the next time these two get together? Well, from a fan's point of view, it's just brilliant, isn't it? I mean, it's exciting. Two guys in the same team. They are having a go at each other. The gloves are off. Their team principals are allowing them to race. And I cannot wait for the next race in the schedule. They're off to America, to the USGP at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. You can overtake on that circuit. It's going to be a lot of fun. See how the teams are going to perform there. Lots of fun, lots of action coming up. We look forward to it going forward. Right, let's have a look at some tennis news now. And US Open finalists Amanda Anisimova beat Linda Noskova 6-love 2-6-6-2 to win the China Open for a second title of a breakthrough year and a 4th overall. The third-seeded American survived the second set wobble to beat the 26-seeded Czech in 1 hour and 46 minutes in Beijing. She lifted the trophy in the Chinese capital almost exactly 1 month after reaching the US Open final, where she lost to world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka. The 24-year-old Anisimova is the third American to win the China Open after last year's champion Coco Gauff and 23-time Grand Slam champion Serena Williams. Anisimova collapsed on the hard court in victory, lying on her back and putting her hands up over her face. And what a performance by her. She really is beginning to grow, I think, on a lot of people after that horrific final at Wimbledon, where she was completely and absolutely smashed in that one. But she's really come back, bounced back, and she's showing some great character. Now, defending champion Yannick Sinner had to retire from the Shanghai Masters after suffering a leg injury in his third-round match against the Dutchman Talon Griekspoor. The world number 2 began to experience issues in the 4th game of the third set and tried to persevere, but unfortunately had to fall away. Novak Djokovic said he'd been hanging by a rope before battling through the Shanghai Masters last 16. A 4-6, 7-5, 6-3 victory over the qualifier Yannick Hoffman. 38-year-old Serb is looking to win a record-extending 5th title in Shanghai, but was given a mighty scare by the 150th ranked opponent in that match. So, I don't know, Djokovic, why don't you just retire? How do you want to be beaten by somebody? Okay, he got through this one, but only close by the skin of his teeth. And maybe enough is enough. Novak, maybe let's just leave it to the other guys. Now, golf, and South Africa's Garrick Hichu was out-dueled by Stephen Fisk down the stretch. Fisk capturing his first PGA Tour title with victory at the Sanderson Farms Championship in Mississippi. Fisk started the day 2 shots adrift of the third-round leader Hichu took advantage of a costly error by the South African to claim a deserved win at the Country Club of Jackson. The 28-year-old American carded a final round 8 under 64 to finish 24 under par, with Hichu closing on a 68 to leave him at 22 under par. Fisk rattled in 9 birdies and just one single bogey in a brilliant round, which saw him go toe-to-toe with his playing partner Hichu on the back 9. Brilliant performance by him. And then the Alfred Daniel Links Championship was reduced to 54 holes after high winds cancelled play on Saturday, and those winds were absolutely horrific. They really were. And Ryder Cup hero, Robert McIntyre became the first Scot to win the Alfred Daniel Links Championship in 20 years, just a week after featuring in Europe's Ryder Cup triumph over the United States. McIntyre, who won 1.5 points at Bethpage Black, secured victory in Scotland with a round of 66 at the Old Course of St Andrews to finish 18 under. The weather hit tournament Tyrrell Hatton, who secured the half point that saw Europe win the Ryder Cup, finished 4 shots back in second place after going 7 under on the day. McIntyre's victory saw him follow Colin Montgomery, the last Scottish winner of the Daniel Links back in 2005, as he chalked up a 4th European Tour title. Well done to him. Right, let's talk football now, and the Carling Cup in South Africa. And the first round of the Carling knockout saw Gauteng Giants, Mamelodi Sundowns and Kaizer Chiefs bow out, but their rivals Orlando Pirates progressed to the next round. The action started on Friday with Fazil Kaba grabbing a hat to propel Durban City to a 4-1 victory over Polokwane City. On Saturday, Golden Arrows showed characters. They fought back to secure a 3-1 victory over Sikakuna United. In Rustenburg, new signing Mehdi Khumalo was the hero as 2023 Carling knockout runners-up TS Galaxy claimed a hard-fought 1-0 victory over tournament debutants Orbit College. The action continued yesterday. Sage Stevens saving 2 spot kicks to inspire Stellenbosch FC to a 5-4 win over Kaizer Chiefs on penalties. And lastly, Richards Bay secured an impressive 4-1 victory in their match against their opponents. So the full series of results: Durban City 4, Polokwane City 1, Orlando Pirates 1, Siwelele 0, Orbit College 0, TS Galaxy 1, Golden Arrows 3, Sekakuna United 1, Sundowns and Maruma Gallants 0-0, Gallants winning 7-6 on penalties, Richards Bay 4-1 over Chipper United, Stellenbosch and Chiefs 0-0, Stellenbosch winning on penalties 5-4, AmaZulu 2, Magesi 3, and the draw has been made now for the quarterfinals. Pirates against Magesi, Richards Bay against Durban City, Maruma Gallants against Stellenbosch, and Golden Arrows against TS Galaxy. And then on the Premier League front this weekend, the results as follows: Brentford 0, Manchester City 1, scrappy performance by Man City. Wolves 1, Brighton 1, Newcastle 2, Nottingham Forest 0. Everton ending that magnificent run by Crystal Palace, 19 games, 2-1 to Everton, breaking that unbeaten run of Palace. And Aston Villa getting points on the board, beating Burnley by 2-1. On Saturday, Chelsea 2, Liverpool 1. They've now lost 3 in a row, have Liverpool. Manchester United a win at last at home against Sunderland 2-0. Arsenal 2-0 victors over West Ham. And Leeds 1, Spurs 2. So the fixtures for this weekend, of course, none because of the FIFA international break. And then the following week, Saturday, the 18th of October and the 19th of October, some big matches. The biggest of all, 5:30, Sunday, the 19th of October, Liverpool host Manchester United. Manchester United will go there with a bit of confidence after being on a decent run with a couple of wins under their belt. And Liverpool, 3 losses in a row. Now, other football, of course, the international fixtures coming up in World Cup qualifiers, and after the drama over the last couple of weeks with South Africa being docked 3 points as well as a 3-0 aggregate, there is going to be some big action as far as African football is concerned. It starts on Wednesday. That's 2 days from now, where Eswatini play Angola, Ethiopia play Guinea-Bissau, Libya play Cape Verde, Mauritius play Cameroon, the Central African Republic play Ghana, Chad play Mali, Comores play Madagascar, Djibouti play Egypt, Sierra Leone play Burkina Faso, Nigeria play Congo, and Tanzania play Zambia. Thursday sees Burundi against Kenya, Botswana against Uganda, Liberia against Namibia, Malawi against Equatorial Guinea, Mozambique play Guinea, and Somalia play Algeria. Friday nights. Here we go. South Sudan, Senegal, Gambia, Gabon, Seychelles, the Ivory Coast, Sudan, Mauritania, Togo, the DRC, Lesotho, Nigeria. Big game, that one for Nigeria. They do still have an outside chance. Lesotho can maybe help South Africa a bit there. Rwanda against Benin. That's a massive, massive game. If Benin get through that one with points, 3 points, the pressure continually remains on South Africa. Sao Tome and Principe, Tunisia and Zimbabwe against South Africa. So South Africa have to win their remaining 2 fixtures, and they need to score more goals and concede less than Benin. If Benin win their 2 goals for automatic qualification after South Africa would dock their points. That is tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. As always, be nice to each other. Until next time, bye for now.